Mo. This is Irving, and it is January 25th. I have been behind in all of my end of year stuff. I'm behind every year, and I'm starting to wonder if I should just give up doing the end of year stuff or if I should change the way I do it. Maybe I need to do my end of year stuff like prior year wrap up and my prior year in review. Maybe I should do those videos like at the end of the year instead of waiting till the new year. I don't like to do that because I definitely like to finish the year, like read to the very last day of the year, read everything, and then think about what I want to do and then create the videos. But then January happens, and one, I don't necessarily want to be looking back to the previous year because I'm excited to start looking forward. And two, it just feels really daunting to have to make all these end of year videos. So maybe I need to sprinkle in some other videos, or maybe I need to sprinkle in making some videos before the end of the year. Like maybe not my best books of the year, but maybe I could do like my best and worst covers of the year before the end of the year. I don't know. I'll have to figure that out. The point is that today we're going to look towards the new year, even though we're not finished going over last year. We're going to look to the new year and we're going to do the new year tag. I cannot remember who did this tag, but I will leave them listed down below if I can remember to, which I have not been remembering to very well. This is just a really short tag that I like to do every year because it just sets you up a little for the beginning of your new year. So in this case, the beginning of 2025. The first question is, how many books are you planning to read in 2025? So in 2024, I read 185 books, which is the most books that I've read since joining BookTube. I'm sure it's the most books that I've ever read in a year. There were some years when I was a teenager or a young adult where I read a lot of books, where I was reading several books a week, but I don't think I've ever read as voraciously as I have read now. And that all comes down to making time for reading, and also reading being my primary source of entertainment, my primary source of education, my primary source of leisure time and relaxation, and my primary source of creativity because it also involves making videos. I think I want to do a video of like how I went from reading, less than 12 books a year to reading 185 books in a year. So let me know if you would like to see a video like that. I feel like that's more for people to like find my channel, not necessarily the people who are already on my channel. And again, it doesn't actually matter how much you read, because as long as you're reading, you're winning. Going back to the question was, how many books do I plan on reading this year? So I set my Goodreads goal and my Storygraph goal for 114 books because I thought this was just enough books that it's not too many books. It doesn't put too much pressure on me. If I read 185 books the year before, I probably will be able to read 114 books. And because I hated having my Goodreads goal at 100 and seeing the counter and the percentage go up at exactly the same rate. So this is just enough that it doesn't go up at exactly the same rate. So if I read 10 books, it's not quite 10%. It's like closer to 9%. So it just doesn't have that repeating number. I don't know, that's just my brain. That's just how my brain works. I just don't like to see it like that. So that's why I set it for that. I feel like I'm at the point where I don't really need to set a reading goal. I think it was beneficial when I first started joining BookTube and when I was first getting into reading a lot more to have that goal. And I do like to see the counter go up. I like to see by how many books I'm ahead, and I like that kind of feeling, but I don't need it. Like, it doesn't motivate me. I'm not, especially this year, you already know I am doing anti-goals this year. It doesn't matter to me how much I read as long as I'm reading and enjoying myself, as long as I'm reading good books and books that I enjoy and books that I'm getting something out of, as long as I am using this as my pastime, as my entertainment, as my downtime, all that kind of stuff. So I've already gotten off subject again, but the point is that I set my goal at 114 books, but my real goal is whatever I end up reading. Next prompt is 5 books you wanted to read last year but didn't get to. So I have 2 books that were on my TBR spin list from last year that got kicked off that I would still like to get to in 2025, and that is How to Love a Jamaican by Alexis Arthurs. This is a collection of short stories, Jamaican short stories, so I am excited to get to this one. It was one that I had hoped all year that I would get in the spin and then just never got. And the other book that was on the TBR spin, which I put back on my new TBR spin for 2025, is The Dead Take the A Train by Cassandra Caw and Richard Kadrey. This is a big old chunky horror book, and I don't know, it just sounds really interesting. It makes me think of New York, it makes me think of jazz, it makes me think of horror, so I love the cover, so I'm excited to read this. This was a proof I got for $1 at my local used bookstore. It's a big one, but I'm interested. So putting this back on the TBR list, hopefully it won't get kicked off, or if it does get kicked off, I will go ahead and read it anyway. Then I also wanted to reread The Great Gatsby. I reread The Great Gatsby every couple of years, and I really wanted to read it last year because I read the Niveau book that is a retelling or reimagining of Great Gatsby, and I also have Nick by Michael Ferris Smith. So I want to reread The Great Gatsby because I love that book, because I read it every couple of years. I think I've read it once since joining BookTube. Reread it once since joining BookTube. And then I also want to read Nick, a retelling reimagining. I found this one in a little free library, and I'd like to get to it and cross it off my list. And then the last book that I didn't get to finish last year was The Lottery and Other Stories by Shirley Jackson. This is a big old collection of short stories, but the short stories vary in size. Some of them are longer, some of them are shorter. I haven't gotten to the titular story yet. I have like one longer story that I haven't read yet, which is Elizabeth, and then I have quite a few at the end that I haven't read yet. But I'm most of the way through. Like, I probably only have a quarter of this book left to read. I started reading it in January of 2024. I continued reading it during Summerween. I wanted to finish it at the end of 2024, but I just didn't get to it. I read a couple of stories for Winterween in January, and now it's almost February and I haven't read it again. And I honestly probably won't read it again until maybe Summerween again, but I would actually like to finish this and get it off of my currently reading list on Goodreads. The next prompt is, what genre would you like to read more of? So this is not a genre, but one of my only actual goals that I carried over that I am counting as a goal is that I want to read more translated work. So like I said, not a genre, but kind of works for this question. I definitely want to be reading a lot more translated work. I want to get my percentage of translated work to be at least 25% of my overall reading. I always want my reading to be like 50% works by people of color. I want it to be like 25% queer work, and I want it to be like 25% translated work. So obviously all those things can overlap, but like kind of the goal is that you're really only reading like 25 to 50% works by just like white Western writers. Like, I would rather that be the smaller percentage, all the other pieces of the pie be bigger percentage. Obviously, again, they overlap, so like, you know, there's wiggle room there, but that's what I would enjoy. So that is not a genre, but that is something I would like to read more of. At the end of 2024, I read quite a bit more sci-fi than I had throughout the year, and so I would like to continue to read a lot of sci-fi. I love sci-fi, but some years I just get away from it, and this year in 2025, I'd really like to get back to it. One genre that I don't really want to read and haven't been reading that I thought I was going to read more of in 2024 was romance, because in 2022 and 2023, I kind of got into romance, but last year I really didn't want to pick up romance barely at all, and I only read a few romances. So that's a genre that I'm planning on like decreasing even more probably. I mean, I'm a mood reader, so I will read whatever I want to read whenever I want to read it, and that goes along with my anti-goals as well. But I have already started like unhauling some of the romance books that I picked up because I'm just not interested in them anymore, especially like straight white romance, you know what I'm saying? The next prompt is to name 3 non-bookish goals. I want to move my body more. I've been extremely sedentary in the last year. I'm getting old, I'm getting sore, like even for the last couple of weeks, like my neck was all messed up, my shoulder, and just like holding my arms up like hurts my arm and my shoulder. I need to be like moving more. I need to be walking more. It's really hard right now, like right now, and in this whole month of February because it's so cold, and it's like really, really cold here in New Jersey. So it's gonna be tough, but I feel like I have to really work on that in 2025 and build strong routines to keep up with it. Another non-bookish goal I have is that I want to get back into my sustainability and low waste and low consumption lifestyle. I haven't left that lifestyle by any means, but things have changed, especially with the pandemic and everything. Like, the landscape of sustainability, I think, has changed. The landscape of my life has changed a little bit. My ideas and my ideals haven't really changed, but finding a balance in what it used to be like and what it currently is, and giving myself room and space to like grow and change, but to stay strong to my ideals is important to me. So that's something I want to work on. I didn't really think about this beforehand, but maybe my last non-bookish goal is to really get into a good work routine and to act like my work from home jobs and even my office job, which I go to once a week, are out of the house jobs, right? So it's hard to hold yourself accountable when you know you can just put it off and do it later, when you know you don't have to start at a certain time, when you know no one's waiting on you, when you know no one's relying on you to help them like open a shop or get something done in a certain time. Like, the things that I do have to get done in a certain time, but the time frame of that is so long. So this is something that I've been working on since the end of last year and has ebbed and flowed, but I think really should be a life goal to make myself stick to a schedule. It can still be a pretty flexible schedule, but to really like hold myself accountable, because it just eats away my time, you know? Like, if I'm pushing my workday back later and later, then it means that I'm probably pushing editing back later and later. It probably means that I'm pushing reading back later and later. So I just need to have set times, again, set times like between this time and this time I have to start working, and I have to work for this long, and yes, I can take an hour break to go for a walk, or yes, I can, you know, do whatever that works for me. Maybe part of the day is in the beginning of the day and part of the day is at the end of the day, you know, something like that. Because right now I just find that even if I'm not procrastinating, even if I'm doing something else, even if I'm not frittering away my day, it feels like I am, because not only did I not get all the work that I wanted to get done, but I didn't get all the other things that I wanted to get done either. The last few days, actually, I've been writing down not what I want to do, but what I'm actually doing. So like, what time I wake up, what time, you know, from this time to this time I'm reading in the morning, from this time to this time I'm doing this, from 10 o'clock to whatever I'm working solidly. I have lunch in there, I write it down so that I can see if I'm wasting time, and if I am wasting time, where that wasted time comes from. I'm not doing that today because it's Saturday and I don't want to like stress myself out too much by like planning every single day of my life all the time, but I do want to plan it a little bit more. Okay, so those are 3 non-bookish goals. I would love to know 3 of your non-bookish goals. Please leave them in the comments below. Because, you know, it's always helpful to see if people are on a similar wavelength or a totally different wavelength. Like, either way, it's good to see what other people's goals are, to just like reference where your goals are in the grander scope of the world. The next prompt is a book you had forever and still need to read. So this could be Be Here Now by Ram Dass. I always put this one, I think I've always put this one in some one of these yearly videos, because it is one that I always mean to get to, but it's such a visual book that I really want to sit down and read it and like take my time with it. And I think you need to take your time with it because it is very visually stimulating, that it's not just a clear, straightforwardly written book. But I have another one, hold on. I also think I should get to How Do You Live by Genzabaru Yoshino, which is a kind of informative, what's the word, like how you should live your life type of book that was written in 1937 in Japan and has become like a huge classic in Japan. And I think a lot of the books that we're seeing get translated, like What You Need Is in the Library, or Before the Coffee Gets Cold, or The Full Moon Coffee Shop, are like hearkening back to this book, this classic. So I think this is a classic that I just really should read. And it's about a group of boys, and it's about trials and tribulations of boyhood and young childhood into young adulthood, and like how you should live your life and how living your life as a good person could better you, like all those other books that I just mentioned. So I've noticed last year a big trend in my reading that when I read, and in the beginning of 2025, that when I read translated works, they were either this kind of book or they were either more of like a literary book that had more deeper literary ideas. So I think it would be interesting to see where some of these books like originated. And I got this book like 4 years ago in a little free library, so I have had this book for a long time and I have been wanting to read it for a long time. It was on my want to read list before then, so I should definitely get to that. The next prompt is one word that you hope 2025 will be, and I have done a word of the year before in other years. I'm not doing a word of the year this year. I'm doing like very minimal things like that as much as possible this year. So I think the word of the year will just be survival. Like if we can just survive this year and this early onslaught of fascism in our country, in the US, that is trying to beat down our souls and trying to make us give up, make us succumb to fascism. I think if we could just survive this year, we'll only have to survive the next 25 years or whatever it's going to be, 4 years at least. But if we could just keep surviving, I think if we could all survive, if our communities can survive, if our joy can survive, if our family can survive, if our loved ones can survive, if we can help other people survive, if they can help us survive, I think surviving is what we have to try for and strive for this year. So I hope you're all surviving so far in the first couple of months of 2025, and I thank you for being here and being part of this community and doing what you can to spread joy and spread love, keep your spirits alive and survive. So that is the New Year's tag. The last prompt is to tag some people, but I'm out of time, so I will say if you'd like to be tagged, consider yourself tagged. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!